Hello, it's Jodie Thornton here, and let's talk today about what to do when your toddler is having a tantrum because they can't have something that's unsafe for them. So in general, I recommend that we set up our homes so that our children don't have access to the kinds of things that are dangerous for them. So in the RIE parenting, so that's RIE parenting style, they recommend having what's called a yes space. So wherever your child spends the majority of their time, we set it up so that there's nothing in there that they are not able to do, right? And that's like a general makes your life easier kind of way. And some people will say like it's important for your child to recognize boundaries and know that sometimes they're not allowed to do things and to have the ability to not do what they're asked not to do. But I kind of figure that when you have a toddler, unless there is nothing else on your goals list, teaching a child not to do something that's unsafe for them, that's interesting to them, it's a lot of work, and I kind of think that we've got so much else to do. I think we're better off to just set up the space so that they don't get into things that are unsafe for them. Now, having said that, there are always going to be times where, either we're not in that place because we are doing something else in another part of the house. You might have a hot cup of coffee, your child, even just the normal furniture. If you've got a child that likes to climb and jump off of furniture, it's kind of difficult to have the space so that it's completely safe. And then, of course, there's other things like siblings bring dangerous things into the area, or, you're visiting someone else's house. There's lots of different reasons why. There are times where our kids do get a hold of something that's unsafe for them. So we want to remove the item from them with the least amount of force we can. So, and just because we generally want it to be a gentle process. And once you've done that, if your child starts to tantrum, a lot of people will recommend that you use distraction or diversion. So get their attention off of what they can't have and onto something that they can have. And I only recommend you do that in the times where what you are giving them instead is a viable substitute for what they wanted the original item for. So if we think about an example of your hot cup of coffee, giving them another cup will only work if they just wanted to have a cup. If they wanted the hot cup of coffee because you have it and it's interesting to them why you have it and they don't have it, then giving them a distraction is not actually getting to the root of what's going on there. What's going on there is that they want something that they can't have, and when we distract away from those feelings, there will always be times where we do, right, that it makes sense that we don't have time or energy or there's some other complicating factor. But in an ideal circumstance, when we distract a child from their feelings, we're actually just teaching them repression, right? We're actually just teaching them, don't pay attention to your feelings and life will be better. What we actually want instead is that we want to figure out why is it that not being able to have that item is upsetting to them. Is it that I want to be able to choose, right? Is it that that particular item is interesting in a way the substitute cup is not? And we want to look for what is the thing? And when you've got a toddler, sometimes it can take a bit of trial and error to figure out what is actually going on underneath there. And so in the meantime, if you can't figure out what the issue is, we want to help your child to calm down enough that they can communicate with you. And always remember that children's capacity to express their feelings or express what's going on for them is lower than their ability to understand what we say. So you can still talk to a child who doesn't yet have the capacity to express in the same way verbally. You can still be talking to them about things. So if you need some assistance in some strategies to get your child to calm down, you can check out my webinar, Supporting Children Through Tantrums. You can get that one at jodiethornton.com/tantrums, and I'll put the link in the description of this video. But so once you've got your child to calm down, what we're looking for is what is the issue about the unsafe item? Is it just that particular item is fascinating? If there is something else that's just as fascinating, then that's not distraction. That's meeting the need with a different strategy, right? But we're still meeting that same need for fascination, or we're still meeting that same need for curiosity. Now, if the need is I want to be able to make decisions and I don't want other people to tell me what I can and can't do, then in the case of an unsafe item, you're not going to be able to find a substitute, because the problem is that you're telling them they can't do something that they want to be able to choose to do. And so for a toddler who's in that position, instead of looking for how do we distract you, how do we get you to move on to something else, instead of that, what we want to do is sit with the feelings and just be like, you really want to be able to choose what you play with. And that hot cup of coffee is the only thing you want right now. And you're really sitting with them in that moment. And in that sitting with them, the purpose of this is to help them to feel heard, to help them to feel like their feelings are valid, to help them to get used to experiencing boundaries. So it's like, this is something I need and I can't have it. And we want them to be able to process those feelings so that it doesn't become something that adds to their emotional load, which means the next thing is going to be more likely to cause a tantrum as well. And so as you do this, where you just are sitting with it, acknowledging that, yes, that's what they want and they cannot have it and that's terrible. And you might even say, I would give it to you if it was safe. I'm so sorry you can't have it, right? And we're just sitting with the feelings, and we're not requiring them to agree with us. We're not requiring them to understand. We're not requiring them to take a different perspective. You know, when all we're doing is just validating those feelings and sitting with them. We're acknowledging the truth, and we're sitting in the fact that this is just not good. It's not what your child is choosing for themselves. And so that process really helps them. So depending on your child's personality and what's going on for them at the time, sometimes that validation and acknowledgement will be enough that the tantrum becomes over really quickly. For some kids, when you start doing that validation, that allows them to feel the full extent of that feeling, and then the tantrum becomes bigger and more explosive, right? But that's temporary until your child learns that this experience will be validating, that they will feel heard, and that they will process their feelings. And then so the more they go through that, the more skillful you get at holding space for those feelings, and the more they experience you being there for them in that way, then what we should see is that it's easier and easier for them. So if we think about improvement in this space, what we wouldn't expect it to improve in a straight line. So you may have some days where it's worse and some days where it's better, but what we want to see is overall the tantrums are getting happening less often, they're less intense, and they're shorter when they do happen. And we want to see that trajectory happening. You should see movement within 2 weeks if this is a tantrum phase that's happening really frequently. So if that's something that you'd like some help with, you can book a time to chat with me about what is happening for your child, what you're trying to do and what is and isn't working. And we can look together at what is the next step to really help you to be able to really be their safe space, and to help them to understand that even though sometimes they're not going to get what they want, that they're going to be okay, and really have that emotional regulation through the times where they're not getting what they want. So if you have any questions at all, please let me know. And if you'd like to book that time to have a chat about what you need as your next steps, the link to book that is jodiethornton.com/15, i.e. the numbers 1 and 5. I'll see you soon.